All right, so we're tackling secondary school teacher interviews today. And let's face it, they can be a little intimidating. But the good news, you have RoleCatcher to help you prep. We're going to be diving deep into their career guides and interview questions.
We'll even look at their AI insights.
Yeah, consider this your crash course on how to really impress those interviewers.
Exactly. It's about going beyond the textbook answers. You really got to show them you're ready for anything.
I love that. So before we get into specific questions, can we maybe paint a picture of what a secondary school teacher's day actually looks like?
Sure, think of it like a juggling act. You're designing a lesson plan 1 minute, then giving personalized feedback the next. Then you could be collaborating with parents or colleagues all in the same day. It's dynamic and challenging for sure.
And speaking of challenging, I was pretty amazed by all that RoleCatcher offers. They have over 3,000 career guides and 120,000 practice interview questions. That's a lot to work with.
Yeah, it's all about making sure you're prepared for anything they might ask. Plus, they have this AI tool that can analyze your answers, and it'll even help you tailor them to the specific school and job description.
Okay, so let's jump into some of those common interview questions. We'll focus on 9 key questions you're likely to encounter. And instead of just giving canned responses, we'll really focus on how to approach them strategically.
It's about showing your authentic self, the passionate educator who's ready to make a difference.
Exactly. So let's start with this one. How do you plan and deliver lessons that cater to diverse learning needs?
This is all about differentiation.
Right.
You need to show them you understand that not every student learns the same way, and more importantly, what strategies you use to meet those different needs.
So instead of just saying, I differentiate instruction, have some concrete examples ready.
Exactly.
Maybe use visual aids for visual learners.
Mm.
Or incorporate group work for those who are more collaborative. And have you ever used individualized assignments?
Those are all great examples. And here's a fascinating fact. Research actually shows that differentiated instruction doesn't just benefit struggling learners.
Oh, really?
A 2015 study published in the Journal of Educational Psychology found that it also helps high achievers.
Oh, wow. That's a great point to bring up in an interview. It shows that you're not just following a trend, but that you're really informed. Do you think they might ask us to describe a time we differentiated instruction for a student?
Oh, absolutely. Be ready with a compelling story. Describe the student's needs, the adjustments you made, and the positive impact it had.
All right, so moving on to question 2. How do you assess student progress and provide feedback? This one's a bit tricky because sometimes assessment can just feel like grades.
Right, it's so much more than that.
Exactly.
You really want to show them that you see assessment as a way to understand where each student is in their learning and how you use that information to guide them forward.
So it's about using a variety of methods, not just tests,
Yep.
like exit tickets to check for understanding during a lesson, or project-based assessments so students can show their learning in a creative way.
I like that.
What about student self-reflection?
Oh, that's a good one. That helps them develop those metacognitive skills.
And then there's feedback. It's not enough to just mention it. You have to highlight how you make it timely, specific, and actionable.
Exactly.
What if they ask about your philosophy on grading?
That's a great opportunity to connect your grading practices to your overall teaching philosophy. Talk about how you prioritize feedback over just points.
Okay, let's move on to question number 3. How do you create a positive classroom culture and manage behavior? I feel like this one gets at your classroom management style.
It does. Are you more about setting clear rules and consequences? Or is your approach building relationships and a sense of community? Either way, you'll want to be prepared to share some specific strategies.
Right, like how do you set expectations?
Yeah.
Or address disruptions? And what about fostering a safe and respectful learning environment?
Those are all key.
Do you think they might ask about a specific time you had to deal with challenging behavior?
Oh, it's very likely. Be ready to share a story about how you handled a tough situation. Make sure you emphasize your ability to maintain a positive learning environment, even when things get difficult.
Like, what did you do to de-escalate the situation? Or did you involve the school counselor or other resources?
They really want to see your problem-solving skills in action.
Okay, question 4. How do you incorporate technology into your teaching? This seems like a big one these days.
It is. Technology is everywhere in schools now. You really need to show them that you're comfortable with tech and that you can use it effectively.
So more than just listing software programs.
Right. Give them examples of how you've used tech to engage students, differentiate instruction, or assess learning.
So maybe talk about how you used Khan Academy for differentiated practice.
That's a good one.
or how you used interactive simulations to bring a concept to life.
Excellent examples. And, this question can actually bring up a bigger issue. How do we make sure all students have equal access to technology?
That's a really important point. It shows you're thinking about the bigger picture.
Yeah.
All right, question number 5. How do you collaborate with colleagues and parents to support student learning?
This one highlights the fact that teaching is a team effort. It's not a solo act.
Exactly.
Be prepared to talk about how you communicate with parents through newsletters, parent-teacher conferences, or even just informal conversations.
And what about collaborating with other teachers?
That's important too. Have you ever participated in professional learning communities, or do you regularly share resources and strategies with colleagues?
I think they might ask for a specific example of a successful collaboration.
It's definitely possible. Have a story ready to share.
And make sure it highlights your communication skills and your ability to build relationships. Okay, question 6 is one that I think a lot of teachers find challenging. What strategies do you use to differentiate instruction for gifted and talented students?
It's easy to overlook these students because they're already excelling, but they need just as much support as students who are struggling. Highlight any strategies you use for providing enrichment, accelerating their learning, or fostering their creativity.
So maybe you create independent study projects or provide more advanced reading material. What about connecting them with mentors in their area of interest?
Those are all great strategies. I bet they might even ask you how you identify gifted students in the first place.
Oh, that's a good one.
You'll want to demonstrate that you're paying attention and that you can recognize potential beyond just test scores.
All right, question 7. How do you support students who are struggling academically or emotionally? So this question really gets at your empathy and your resourcefulness.
It does. Have some specific interventions ready to discuss, things like tutoring, small group instruction, or modified assignments.
And don't forget about the emotional side of things.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable talking to students about their struggles
Yeah, that's important.
and connecting them with support services either in the school or the community?
Exactly. You want to show them that you care about the whole child, not just their grades.
What if they ask about your experience with students who have IEPs or 504 plans?
Just be honest about your experience. If you haven't worked extensively with those plans, highlight your willingness to learn and to collaborate with special education professionals.
All right, moving on to question 8. How do you incorporate cultural diversity and inclusivity into your teaching?
This one's all about creating a classroom where every student feels like they belong.
Right.
Share some concrete ways you bring diverse voices and perspectives into your lessons. Do you use multicultural literature? What about culturally relevant pedagogy? And are you mindful of the language you use to create a welcoming environment?
What if they ask a really tough follow-up question? Like, how do you address sensitive topics related to race, ethnicity, or religion?
That's a great question. That's where you can really show your commitment to creating a safe space for dialogue and your ability to handle complex conversations with respect.
And finally, question number 9. How do you keep up to date with the latest educational research and best practices? I feel like this is all about lifelong learning.
It is. Teaching is always evolving, and the best teachers are always looking to improve.
So be ready to talk about the professional development you've done.
Right. Conferences, workshops, online courses, even just reading educational journals or blogs.
What if they ask about a recent book or article that's influenced you?
Have an example ready. And be prepared to explain how it changed your thinking or led you to try new things in your classroom.
Okay, so we've covered 9 common questions, but there's still so much more to talk about. In the next part, we'll dive deeper into how RoleCatcher's AI can help tailor your answers. And we'll look at some career insights from their secondary school teacher career guide.
It's going to be great.
Yeah, so stay tuned.
Welcome back.
So you mentioned RoleCatcher's AI earlier. I'm really curious about how it can help me tailor my interview answers.
Well, think of it like having a virtual mentor. It analyzes your responses, but it also looks at the job description and even the school's website.
Oh, wow. So it's really customized to each opportunity.
Exactly. Let's say the school emphasizes project-based learning on their website. RoleCatcher's AI might suggest that you highlight your experience with project-based learning, so you can really connect your skills to what they're looking for.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like having someone point out exactly what I should be focusing on.
And it's not just about the content. It can even analyze your tone of voice and give you feedback on how to project confidence.
That's incredible. It's like having a personal coach right there with me.
Now, let's not forget about the big picture. RoleCatcher's Career Guide also gives you some great insights into the different stages of a teacher's career.
Right. It's not just about getting this one job. It's about understanding where I can go from here.
Exactly. The guide does a great job of laying out those different stages. You might start as an entry-level teacher where you're assisting more experienced teachers. Then you could move up to a junior teacher and take on more responsibility.
And eventually I could become a senior teacher and maybe even lead a department.
Exactly. The guide even includes stories from real teachers at each stage, so you can really get a sense of what each role entails.
I love that. All right, so let's get back to those interview questions for a minute.
Mhm.
What about those situational questions? The ones that are designed to see how you would handle real-life scenarios.
Those are definitely important. They're testing your problem-solving skills and your ability to think on your feet.
So how should I approach those types of questions?
Well, remember, there's no one right answer. It's more about showing your thought process and your ability to make good decisions in challenging situations.
What if they ask me about a student who's constantly disrupting class?
That's a common one.
Yeah.
You could start by emphasizing that you have a clear classroom management plan, but then go beyond just rules and consequences.
No.
Talk about building relationships with your students and creating a positive classroom culture.
So I could say something like, I would try to understand why the student is acting out, and maybe talk to them privately to see if there's anything I could do to help.
Exactly. That shows you're not just focused on punishment, you're also trying to address the root of the problem.
What about those questions where you honestly don't know the answer? Like if a student asks you something and you just don't know how to respond.
It happens to all of us. The key is to not panic.
Right.
Use it as an opportunity to model lifelong learning for your students.
So I could say something like, that's a great question. I don't know the answer right now, but let's research it together.
Perfect. It shows that you're not afraid to admit when you don't know something.
Yeah.
And that you're willing to learn alongside your students.
Now, towards the end of the interview, they'll probably ask if I have any questions. Is it okay to just say no?
Absolutely not. That's your chance to show them that you're really interested in the school and the position.
So what kind of questions should I ask?
Come prepared with some thoughtful questions, things that show you've done your homework.
Like what?
You could ask about the school's culture, or about professional development opportunities, or even about specific initiatives that they're working on.
That's a great idea. It shows that I'm not just looking for any job.
Exactly. And don't forget to really listen to what they're saying during the interview. You can tailor your answers to their specific needs.
So if they mention that technology is really important, I could highlight my experience with specific platforms.
Exactly.
And RoleCatcher's AI can help me with those situational questions too, right?
It can. It'll analyze your responses and suggest improvements based on best practices.
So it's like having another set of eyes to make sure I'm doing everything I can.
Exactly. Now remember, with all this prep, the most important thing is to be yourself. Let your passion for teaching shine through.
I love that, because ultimately that's what's going to make you stand out.
Now, before we move on to our final thoughts, take a moment to reflect on what we've discussed so far.
What resonated with you the most? And how can you use these insights to prepare for your own interview?
Well, we've talked about a lot, haven't we? We covered those common interview questions and even looked at potential career paths using RoleCatcher's Career Guide. And I think that AI tool is really going to be so helpful. I love that it can analyze my answers and give me personalized feedback.
It really is a game changer, but at the end of the day, the most important thing is your passion for teaching.
Right. It's that spark that's really going to connect with the interviewers. They want to see how excited you are to work with students.
Exactly. So you've prepped for all those questions about differentiation technology, classroom management. But here's a challenge for you. How will you, as a secondary school teacher, make sure that every single student in your classroom feels seen, heard, and valued?
Wow, that's a big one. It's about creating that inclusive and supportive environment where everyone feels safe and empowered to learn.
It's about recognizing that every student brings something unique to the classroom.
And that every student has their own strengths and challenges.
So as you go into that interview, remember this. Your passion for teaching is your biggest asset.
It's what will make you stand out from the crowd.
Let your passion guide you, and you'll not only ace the interview, but you'll also have a truly fulfilling career. And remember, RoleCatcher is there to support you every step of the way.
Best of luck in your journey.
Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.